And that's why RJ's favorite basketball or football or pro sports team is the worst basketball or football pro sports team. All right. So, yesterday we started talking about the building blocks of life, right? Now, what's the most important element for life on our planet? Carbon. And the study of chemistry around carbon has a special name. You might see it in a supermarket, but it means something different. Any chemistry involving carbon is referred to as what sort of chemistry do we say? You might have to check your notes. Human life certainly plays a role, but it's not human life chemistry. Starts with an O. Or organic. Organic chemistry, because organic means life, like alive, and the advertising in the supermarket, just the same word but different meaning. Okay, organic in that sense means natural. Not what we're talking about here, although this is also all natural. Okay, so we were talking yesterday about the building blocks of life, and of which there are 4 of them. The first ones that we talk about are what you get from, your bread, your sugars, things like that wind up fueling your body. If you want to run a race tomorrow, Fred, the night before, what do you have for dinner? Do you think about it?
Well, yeah, just a food based off carbs.
Carbs. You want carbs because in your body, carbohydrates are converted to what? Energy. Now, we saw yesterday that some simple examples of this, and there's a variety of these. Remember, they're called saccharides. So saccha from, I don't remember the actual Greek word, but it comes from sugar, and these are all sugars. Now, when we look at it, the simplest one that we kind of generalize to say, hey, look, this is what carbs look like, is this idea of glucose. Now, beyond that, there's a ratio. If you have, for every carbon, there's 2 hydrogens and an oxygen, you're looking at a carbohydrate. And it's weird to think about this because they're all joined together, right? If you join 3 of these or 7 of these together, you're going to get what's called a monosaccharide. One type of sugar, it's the most basic that there is. Now, beyond that, you can get disaccharides, things like maltose, which you will find in milk products and the like. You guys ever been to a Dairy Queen?
Yeah.
Okay, this is going to feel random, but I promise it wraps back around. What's a chocolate shake? If I wanted to make me a chocolate shake, what would you do? You need milk, chocolate, and probably ice cream, right? So ice cream and milk, and you blend it together, right? What if I ordered a chocolate malt? Is that still something that people do?
Yeah.
I love malts. It's like a shake. Do you know what's different, though?
It's bitter. Yeah. No?
Not really.
What's bitter?
A malt, I'm trying to think. Whoppers? Is that the chocolate candy?
Whoppers?
Yeah. Whoppers? Chocolate malted milk balls?
Oh.
Okay, so shakes and malts are the same thing. It's really not thicker. You might, maybe somebody made it, but I could make a shake now and a thicker shake in a minute, and, they're both shakes. You add malt powder to it is what winds up happening. And malt powder, why am I talking about this, do you think?
Because it's simple sugar.
Kind of. It's not glucose, but which one of these? We have glucose, maltose, and glycogen. Which of these do you think might be related to malt that you might get from a Dairy Queen or a Burger King or whatever? Maltose. Okay. Comes from milk, just like lactose comes from milk. These things, they're sugars for sure. We have simple sugars from 3 to 7. We have more complex sugars called disaccharides instead of monosaccharides. And eventually we get these big fancy ones. Now, this has been driving me crazy. So we have, depending on how many of these simple sugars are stuck together, one of these 3 things, right? Mono, di, or polysaccharides. Now, both monosaccharides and disaccharides, your body takes them and it immediately converts them to energy. But maybe from time to time we eat more carbs than our body can use right at that point in time. Okay, eventually it makes you fat. That's what happens with it. It gets converted because not all of it can get used right away. In our glycogens, specifically we have energy storage. That's what polysaccharides do. They do not get digested right away. They have to be broken down into simpler forms like monosaccharides or disaccharides, but initially they act, thank you sir, as energy storage. Now, just so we can go a little bit into the bio stuff, when your body stores energy, before it breaks these down to make them usable energy, it gets stored in 2 places. These glycogen or polysaccharides are stored in the liver and in skeletal muscles. So muscles that are directly connected to your skeleton. Okay, this is where your body decides to store all these carbs that it can't make use of yet. Eventually, theoretically, your body will break down these polysaccharides into simpler forms that your body can then use as energy in your cells. But it's just like when you fill up your gas tank, you're not putting your fuel right in the engine, right? That'd be silly because you'd put it in the engine, you'd go 10 feet, and then you'd need to fill it up again. You store it in the gas tank, and eventually it makes its way through a pretty fancy process to become your fuel. Same thing is happening right here. Now, beyond this, in the notes, you guys are in the book rather. You read about this briefly. In our bodies, this is like the human kind of sense. This is animals. And I'm not going to say just humans in general, but animals. Okay. There are, however, other functions that these carbohydrates play. We saw that they do serve a purpose in plants, but it's not energy storage or energy use. What do these do in plants? Do you remember what we read yesterday?
Oh, build the cell wall.
They build the cell walls, which lead to structure, right? So, beyond energy in animals, we're just going to say real quickly some other functions. Other functions of, remember, we're talking about carbs. So, in general, carbohydrates, they're usable or not in animals, but they serve other functions in different stuff. So, plants specifically use carbohydrates to produce what is known as cellulose. Okay, all that this is cellulose from, and we're going to go ahead and specify this out. This happens when chains of glucose, which are these most simple sugars that we would use for energy if we had glucose. We use it, our cells power themselves with it. Plants use it for a different reason. The cellulose is just a bunch of glucose formed in chains that create fibers. Now, I'm going to be really specific here. When I'm talking about fibers, if you take a piece of grass, can you peel it? Like, can you rip it right down the middle?
Yeah.
You can, right? Because it's a fibrous thing. What you're seeing is just a long chain of cellulose. That's it, a bunch of sugars, and it's a reason that some plants are really sweet, right? Like, can you think of any plant that probably has a lot of glucose in it?
Yeah.
Sunflowers, dandelions,
Like flowers in general.
flowers, pineapples. A lot of fruits are really sweet, right? We taste it all. This glucose creates, not creator, plant fibers, which when we're thinking of these, we're just going to think of them as support. That's what it does. Now, there's another one. Another place that this gets used. What are our bones made of? Calcium's a pretty big component of our bones, right? Okay. Do bugs have bones? They have exoskeletons even, right? And so do things like shrimp and lobster and crab, right? Okay, kind of gross, but all that shrimp and crab are just bugs that live in the water. They're just big bugs that live in the water, and they're delicious. Now, with that said, turns out that kitten, which I know it doesn't look like it, kitten, which like straight up looks like the cat. Kitten. Turns out that this is just another carbohydrate. And what this is it's made of more complex. So remember, these are super like chill ones that our bodies can break down easy. And polysaccharides are the ones that our body has to deal with to break it down into these to be able to digest it. Now, kitten specifically is another polysaccharide. So we're just going to say that this is special though. This is a nitrogen containing. So it's a carbohydrate that contains nitrogen as well. So I know off the bat that it has carbon, then it must have oxygen and hydrogen because that's how we define a carbohydrate. And now we have some nitrogen in there as well. A nitrogen containing polysaccharide, which is a polysaccharide a complex sugar or a simple sugar?
Very complex.
Poly is many of them stuck together. That's a complex one that would need to be broken down if we eat it, or maybe can be broken down if we eat it. Nitrogen containing polysaccharide that forms shells of insects and crustaceans. And then I'm not going to put this one down, but I will talk about it. What's a crustacean, first of all?
It's like little crabs, like little
Crabs.
stuff that fish eat generally. Really small.
A sea bug with a hard shell. Shrimp are crustaceans.
Snail,
Snails would be as well. Like, you can deal with them all. Now, here's the one part I couldn't think of an example. Is the only reason I'm not going to write it down. What's a fun guy? Like, I'm a fun guy, but I'm not. Fungus. Mushrooms is what I think of. You ever seen a hard mushroom? You have?
What do you mean hard?
Like with a shell? I never have. Where?
Like you get a random crab shell, put it on the mushroom, then you have a hard shell.
Okay, you're not wrong. Not what I'm after, but you're not wrong. Okay, I haven't seen it, but apparently this kitten that makes the shells hard on bugs and crustaceans, there are fungus mushrooms that also have this in it that help make them stronger. I've never seen a crunchy mushroom. I don't know. It might be a fungus that looks like a mold. It could be that, but I've also never seen a crunchy mold.
It's in the ocean.
It might be in the ocean. I don't know. Bam Bam?
Like it's one of those like has zero inside it, like iron and stuff.
So it's from this kitten, sorry, I say it wrong every time. What's easier for your body to digest? Something simple or something complex? Simple. Now, glucose, just regular sugar, our body can handle it, no problem. Same with maltose, and there's a bunch of them, more than just I've listed here. Some polysaccharides, which are just the complex ones that take a lot of energy and stuff to break down. Some of them we can't. You guys ever eaten a crab shell?
No. Oh yeah.
Okay, so
Those tiny ones.
like on the shrimp or a crab? Okay, if this is just going to be gross, there's no way to avoid it. If you eat a crab shell, do you think your body can break it down?
Yes. No.
You're going to wind up excreting it at some point. For this, there is a line where our body can deal with this super complex carbohydrate called a polysaccharide, that sometimes we can break it down, but it depends on the carbohydrate itself and whether our body can actually do it.
That's typically what
We can't eat crab shells.
stomach ache or something.
It could lead to a stomach ache or indigestion and a variety of different things. Andrew.
What if it's a like soft shell crab, like they boil the whole thing and like it's just like squishy?
So I'll tell you, some of it depends. It's going to be so situational. I think that like some people, when you guys eat shrimp, do you pull the tail?
Yeah.
Even if they're little shrimp, do you take the tail off? Like that was a shock for me. I'd never eaten a shrimp tail in my life, and then somebody brought me a dish from home, and it had a bunch of little shrimp, and they didn't take the tails off because it'd be tedious to take them all off. You can chew them, you can eat them. You're not going to get any energy or anything from it because your body won't break it down. But that was a weird change for me. Bam Bam.
So what if you eat a crab shell and then you start coughing up blood for 2 weeks and you're still alive?
And you stop what?
Like you know if you eat a crab shell, you digest it, but then the next 2 weeks you start coughing up blood and then you're still alive.
Unless you put it in your lungs, they're probably not super related.
Well,
Does that make sense? Maybe I don't understand your question. Can you rephrase it?
like for sure you can't digest like crab shell or something.
No.
Yeah, but what if you like actually manage to digest it, but then you start coughing up blood?
So you wouldn't manage to digest it just because our bodies don't do it. Just like if I eat a chunk of wood, I'm not going to get any value from it, right? Like I'm not going to take any nutrients from it. It'll pass through me, probably. And then if coincidentally I started coughing up blood, I would say they're unrelated. Unless I breathed in a bunch of the wood as I was eating it. But then that's not me digesting it, it's me having something in my lungs. Like sawdust, for example, is what I think of with breathing in wood, not a big stick. They would be unrelated. Bam, bam. Okay. All right. So, for today, I want to split this up a little bit because I think with 5 people it gets too broad. I'm going to divvy up the labor. I wish we had 6 people, so this could be even and even and even. But check it out. We are going to look at 3 more, and you guys are going to take brief notes, and you're going to teach us about it, and I'm going to add to it. So with a partner, I'll be your partner. We're going to try this again, like we did yesterday, but smaller group so that it's easier to generalize. You guys are going to physically write the notes. You're going to help me decide what I'm writing up here. I'll probably add a little bit to it, but you guys are helping us with this. Okay, so we have 3 more building blocks to deal with. We get these things called lipids. These are fats, just at its most basic. and I would leave space for this because different people are going to be doing different ones. We get lipids. We get proteins. And then last but not least, we get nucleic acids. Okay, for these, yesterday, because you did, I don't remember what you did, but I gave you the choice. Zed is going to do this one. I'll do it too. Okay, the other four of you, I can pick your groups or I can just tell you. It seems like you two. Okay, Andrew and Fred. Let me see which one I want you to have. I want you guys to do proteins.
Can I grab some water?
Yes. You should probably drink it too, though. Yeah, probably. Yep. All right. For this, I'm going to give you guys like 10 or 15 minutes or so. I want you to read through the section, and it can be a challenge, but I want you to identify what you consider the important information, and you're going to take notes in the similar structure as I am. Here in a couple minutes, I'll either steal one of your guys' pages and throw it up here and talk about it, or I'll write it, steal your book and I'll write it as well. Cool, cool? 15 minutes. We'll do RJ and Bam Bam. We're going to hit you guys first. Okay. Cool. Read the section. You are taking notes on your page. Sweet. It's like 2 to 3 paragraphs for each of you. Sweet. We'll meet back up in 15 minutes. I'll be around, obviously, to help questions. I'm going to go check out that binder situation.